right, well, 6:30, so I call this meeting to order. Kelsey, would you like to do roll call?
Yes, Mr. Torpy,
Here.
Mr. Glassner is not here tonight, Ms. Perez,
Present.
Mr. Day,
Here.
Mr. Locklear.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the approval of the August 9th, 2023 meeting minutes, which are in your packet.
From what I heard, it seems appropriate. I'll move approval.
Okay, second, I second that. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Meeting minutes approved. We will move on to the next item, which is a special presentation. We have Walker Dawson, who is the Stormwater Utility Manager, here to tell us about the Stormwater Master Plan and some stormwater improvement projects. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. We got a packed house tonight, so I appreciate you all inviting me to come and speak to you. My name is Walker Dawson. Obviously, I'm the Stormwater Utility Manager. A little bit of background on myself. I've pretty much grown up in Cocoa Beach, been here since I was 6. I kind of lived between Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral. I graduated from Cocoa Beach High School in '96. I went on to Florida Tech, and I have a degree in ocean engineering from Florida Institute of Technology. I kind of got pigeonholed. I went into the coastal engineering world, doing a lot of beach renourishment projects, doing a lot of shore protection projects. And I was exposed to Virginia Barker, who is the director of the Natural Resources Department over Brevard County. She's ultimately the mastermind behind the Save Our Indian River Lagoon project plan as well. I was exposed to her pretty early on in my career. I knew her for many years, and then the Sorrel plan ramped up, and I reached out to her when I was in the private consulting, said, hey, just throw my hat in the ring. Do you need someone to help you with the team? She brought me on board. I managed the dredge projects as part of the Sorrel plan for about 5 years, and then last year, late June, I joined the city to be the Stormwater Utility Manager. So, lived here my whole life. You know, I grew up on the river. I've grown up surfing, spearfishing, scuba diving. So this is my home as well. I'm not just someone here doing a job. So just a little bit of background. And I am Bob's canal neighbor across the way. So, and oh, by the way, I got a really cool picture of my son holding a snook in the kayak that you let us borrow.
Okay.
So I'll have to share that with you. Okay, I'll get right into this. So I'll start with the basics. I know you all are probably more well-versed than most people are, stuff like stormwater, but I like to start from the basics to just kind of get everyone up to speed and make sure I didn't miss anything. So stormwater is any rain that flows along impervious surfaces. That's debatable. Stormwater is anything that flows that is rainfall, whether it's impermeable or not. Impermeable surfaces, this is where we run into a lot of problems with water quality. This is also where we run into a lot of problems with flooding. That's any kind of hard impervious surface where water cannot percolate through buildings, roadways, parking lots, sidewalks, anything that's hard and compact that the rainwater wants to run across and not percolate into. Permeable surface are things such as yards, green spaces, gardens, rain gardens like you see in the Minuteman streetscape area. Beaches would be considered an impermeable surface, but that doesn't really apply to what we deal with because it does such a good job of dealing with rainwater. So just to give you a little bit of background on some of these pictures. Okay, this mouse has got me all wonky. So this is one of the bioretention swales at the end of Conbear Cove. This is actually right next to Dempsey Park right there. This is something else we deal with is erosion and sediment issues. This is down at the old Wildlife Water Sports. I don't know if you all remember where that was, back behind 7-Eleven. This was during a major rainfall event in July of 2021 where they had all that pretty packed coquina right to the water's edge. This is what happens when you have rainfall that comes across impervious surfaces and then picks up silt and all kinds of pollutants and whatever else and brings it into the river. This is actually during Ian. This is it Indian Creek Trail? Indian Creek off of North Shore, right there off of Oak Street. So this is, Go back here. So this is not actually flooding from rainfall. This is flooding from the river level that came up during the storm. This is not because the water really came into the yards. It wasn't water standing from the rain falling. So a little bit of background on Cocoa Beach and the stormwater runoff we have to deal with. So we've got 3.5 square miles of developed area. 42% of that's probably a little higher now, this number may be a little dated, is impervious. So on average, we get about 50 to 52 inches of rain a year. So that generates about 1.25 billion gallons of stormwater that has to go somewhere. In most cases, it goes directly into the lagoon, for lack of a more detailed analysis. And for perspective, so the reclaim tanks that are right over there, one of those tanks is 6 million gallons. So we can fill up 208 of those tanks annually with the amount of runoff that is generated by the impervious surface in Cocoa Beach, just to put it in perspective. You work in wastewater?
Water and wastewater.
Okay, all right, awesome. So basically, our water reclamation plant processes almost that exact amount of gallons per year, 1.25 billion gallons per year. Just to kind of put it all into perspective. So a little bit of background on the Stormwater Utility Department. It was established in 1992. The annual budget is about 1.5 million, and we are currently a 6-person department. When I say 6-person, there's 6 people that fall under the stormwater umbrella. Kelsey probably does at least half of the projects for stormwater. So there's a lot of other people. We work very closely because we're such a small city. We all work really well together. So there's just 6 people that work directly in stormwater. So our responsibilities, there is something called an NPDES permit, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. There are a litany of requirements that we have to follow and we have to document and report on. That includes operation and maintenance of stormwater systems. That also includes inspection of the systems, because here in the city we have about 23 miles of stormwater line. We have 800 inlets and 300 some odd outfalls. I think those numbers are correct. Every year we have to inspect and maintain. There's a number of items like the Minuteman Rain Gardens where we have to do regular cleaning of the inlets. There's a whole litany of things, but NPDES also includes public outreach. What else am I missing, Kelsey? I think there's literally
Permitting and land development code.
Yeah, permitting, land development code, thank you. That's another big one that we have to monitor, track, and make potential changes to. And then finally, there's capital improvement projects. That's turning dirt. Anytime we're gonna build a new stormwater system like Convair Cove right in front of Dempsey Park, or the Minuteman Streetscape was another capital improvement project under the stormwater umbrella. So our utilities objectives, there's really 2 main objectives: flood abatement, water quality improvements. Those 2 very much conflict, because flood abatement is get the water off of the surface and to the receiving water body as quickly as you can. Water quality is keep it where it falls, let it percolate in, let nature do its job. So it's a double-edged sword. They really do conflict in a lot of cases. Flood abatement obviously relates to hurricanes, heavy rainfall events, which we see pretty frequently in the summers here. And then water quality improvements. Water quality problems that we've seen, and I think everyone in here is probably pretty familiar with, is algae blooms, fish kills, and most recently, our manatee mortality events. And Bob, you may, actually everyone in here may recognize that picture of the fish kill. That is from, was that Snug Harbor? I think that was in that little cove in Snug Harbor when we had a major fish kill in the Banana River in 2016. So that leads us into the Stormwater Master Plan update. One was originally done in 2001. It was updated a short 20 years later in 2021, and this is really our guiding document. This gives us a blueprint of what we should be doing and what we're going to do over the next 10 years. It is a very lengthy document. If you Google City of Cocoa Beach Stormwater Master Plan, it'll be the first thing that pops up. So if you want to download it and take a look at it, feel free. The executive summary is a good place to start because even that is 28 pages, so it's a very lengthy document. But it's a relatively, it's an extensive document, but I'm going to focus on really three areas. The flood assessment, water quality assessment, and then also our capital improvement program. So I'll go ahead and jump into the flooding assessment. So this is really a basis, this was the basis that our consultant used to identify what is the horizon that we're looking at. When we're looking into the future and we're trying to identify where do we need to be, what is the level of service of our stormwater system going to be, what kind of river elevation are we looking at? So they pulled some of the data from NOAA and the Army Corps of Engineers, and they looked at what were the low predictions all the way up to the high predictions. And they picked the year 2060, which I doubt you all can read on the screen, but that little red box is the year 2060. And they selected between the Army Corps Intermediate and the NOAA Intermediate High at 1.4 feet. So basically what they're looking at in this particular assessment is we're looking at the 2060 horizon, water level is going to be 1.4 feet higher. How is our existing stormwater system going to operate? And I'll explain that in the next slide here. So in the Stormwater Master Plan, they said, okay, our current river level is about plus 0.7 feet in AVD. That's maybe a little bit high, a little low, and I'll explain why I'm saying it may be a little bit high when I get to a graph later on. So what the future condition will look like is plus 2.1 feet, projected at 2060. And then they took a 10-year, 24-hour return interval rainfall event, which is about 9 inches in 24 hours. And what they compared was, so here is the existing, this is how each one of our stormwater systems will perform in existing conditions with the water level at plus 0.7, I should say, and a 10-year return interval rainfall event. So we get 9 inches of rain in 24 hours. How does each one of our systems look? So you'll see there's a legend down here. Blue is good, everything's functioning properly. Green is still good, functioning properly, but it's really right at capacity. Yellow gets it to, we're about a half a foot over capacity. Orange is we're a foot over capacity. And when I say a half foot, I'm referring to we got about 6 inches of flooding, we have about a foot of flooding. And then red is severe flooding, like structures damaged, roads compromised, all that stuff. So what you'll see here, if I can get this mouse to work, here we go. So existing conditions, we definitely have some challenges and problems. You can see there's some severe flooding sprinkled throughout the city. Anyone who's driven down 520 after a torrential downfall right in front of Sunset Grill will know exactly why this is all orange and red here. And then we've got some other areas, Orlando Avenue, South Orlando, when you get pretty much south of 2nd Street. That east side of Orlando Avenue is a very problematic area because everything's running off the dune ridge and just stopping at Orlando Avenue there. But then, which is kind of scary, and I'm not a big doom and gloomer with this kind of stuff. I try to be objective, but based on these model results, you see that we have major problems throughout the city with the exception of the corridor, the A1A corridor from 520 up to 4th Street North. So water level comes up 1.4 feet. We get a 10-year return interval rainfall event. We're going to have major problems. The tailwaters or the receiving water body, which is the Banana River, that elevation has a significant impact on how well the water moves through the system into the receiving water body. And this picture here, we actually had a stadia, it's not a stadia rod, but this is actually this is measured to NAVD. This is actually during Hurricane Ian, and the water level crested at plus 1.9, which is the highest I had seen it. It was over my seawall. I know it was definitely over Bob's seawall. Yeah. So it was probably the highest I had ever seen. I'm sure other people have probably
Give them about 6 feet up on the lawn. So,
yeah.
6 to 10.
Yeah. So I'll jump into the water quality assessment. So what we're looking at here, this is a figure from the Stormwater Master Plan. It is called, they labeled it the ecologically significant events. I like visual stuff, so this is very helpful in a chronological order. On the left side of the figure, it starts at 1996. On the right side, it's 2018. And I know you can't really read it, but in 96, there was, the clamming industry was declining. Bob, were you here then?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's when clamming like absolutely decimated the river. And it was by the time that they implemented some legislation to stop it, it was too little too late. But then we get into 1999, and you have Hurricane Floyd, Hurricane Irene, and then as we march forward, we get into the 2004 through 2006 era, and you have Charlie, Jean, Francis, Wilma, and then 2000 and, was it 8 or 9 that we had Faye?
8.
Was it 2008? Okay. And then we get into where we saw the catastrophic failure of where our, we lost all of our seagrass. You'll see in 2010, we had a major cold snap followed by extreme high temperatures the following summer, then another cold snap, and then right here in 2011, we had what they called the super bloom. That's when we lost 96% of the seagrasses that we had throughout the Indian River Lagoon, not just Banana River, but lagoon-wide. And I think what this is, it's a good visual because it's more than just algae blooms that drive this. You can have a crazy cold snap followed by a really warm summer. The cold snap can kill off all the drift algae. That can release a ton of nutrients into the water and then lead into a major algae bloom that we saw in 2011. And then you see, since 2011, on and off, we've had all kinds of algae blooms throughout the lagoon. The one thing that was missing from this graph that I added in here is right here is 2016. That was the Banana River fish kill. That was a crazy fish kill that I'd never seen anything like it in all my years. So this is just kind of a long-term snapshot of all the problems we've seen with water quality on the ecological scale. BMAP requirements. This is something I talked about in one of the previous slides. So BMAP stands for Basin Management Action Plan. These are implemented, these have been developed and have been implemented by the FDEP, and they've been implemented for anything that they consider impaired water body. At this point, there's pretty much, I don't even know if there's any non-impaired water bodies in the state of Florida. Do you know, Bob?
There are a few.
There's a handful, but the vast majority of water bodies are impaired. They're either impaired for nutrients or bacteria or a litany of other things. So there's a basin management action plan for the Banana River. What this is a list of all of the entities that they're typically governmental entities in some way, shape, or form that are contributors or create nutrient loading to the lagoon. So you'll see that I don't know who the agricultural producers are. I'm assuming that's somewhere up on Merritt Island because I don't know where else ag producers would be. Obviously Brevard County, Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, so on and so forth. But what you see is these numbers here is TN reduction. That is total nitrogen pounds per year that each one of these entities are required to reduce their loading by. So the city of Cocoa Beach is on the hook to reduce our nitrogen loading by over 15,000 pounds annually. Our total phosphorus loading is required to be reduced by 2,300 pounds annually. Where are we at now as a city? We have hit approximately 2,800 pounds per year and 806. We have a very long way to go. And the horizons are coming up quickly. We have a milestone report requirement in 2025. We also have one in 2030, and then again 2035 is when we should have all of this done. One of the major challenges we have with the city here is 97% of the property within the city limits is privately owned. So we can't, I guess we could go out and do eminent domain and take people's land and do that kind of stuff, but that would go over like a lead balloon. So this is just framing things up. This is a huge hurdle to overcome. How can we overcome it? Modifications to land development code, additional requirements for when properties are developed or redeveloped, requiring BMPs for load reductions. We haven't got into the nuts and bolts of how we may do that, but these are things that are on the horizon that if we're going to hit these numbers, we've got a few years to really get the ball rolling and really start implementing that. Otherwise,
What's the timeline on hitting the numbers?
2035. So we've got about 12 years. But we do have, in 2025, we have to report to the DEP and say, hey, we're this far along. And obviously, when you're looking at our numbers, we're not that far along. And these small, like, bioswales and stuff that reduce 3 and 4 pounds of new total nitrogen a year, they're not going to cut the mustard when it comes to hitting our BMAP targets.
Do you have any idea how the rest of the entities are doing?
I don't, I don't right now, but you can download all of this data, and actually, it's probably something I should talk to Zach over at the City of Cape Canaveral, see where they're at, and also talk to the county, because they have some portions along the Banana River as well. But,
Everybody's about in the same boat, Jim.
yeah,
They got a long way to go.
Do these numbers include reductions in our reclaim?
they
Or is
can
it
be
just
claimed.
stormwater?
So they get anything that is a load producing source
Okay.
can be claimed. So let's say City of Melbourne, say their reclaim had 8 milligrams per liter, and then they went to AWT and they got down to 3 milligrams per liter, absolutely could be claimed.
Yeah.
It could for sure. And we're allowed to claim a certain number of pounds for public education, which in my opinion are way overstated, but there's a lot of different ways that you can claim credits. So this takes us going from the flood assessment or the flood assessment and the water quality assessment to the 10-year capital improvement program, which includes projects of both types, both flood abatement and water quality improvement. So there's a total of 15 flood improvement projects, 25 water quality projects, and this includes 7 studies. This is one of those things, there's a lot of voodoo in stormwater, and there's a lot of information that we need to garner through studies to really have a clear understanding of what's going on. So the required budget based on this plan is let me back up. The required capital improvement project budget is about $1 million. Historically, it has been $600,000 for the CIP. So rates are going to need to go up, or we're going to need to cut capital improvement projects to get us back down to the $600,000. So setting this up to tell everyone that it's either we make some changes or we don't do anything and we end up in hot water with the DEP. But
Everybody's water and sewer's going up.
what's that?
Everyone's water and sewer's going up.
Yeah, I think they just approved our water reclamation rates. They're going up by 30%, or if they haven't already, or within the next month. And then I think they're going to go up another 60% within the next year. Yeah, so, and this is part of it. I mean, this is just part of, if we're going to really make an impactful change to the water quality in our area, this is just the way it is. This place has, the state of Florida has grown so much. It's going to cost money, and everybody's going to have to chip in. So I know that's not a very popular thing, and I wouldn't say this if this was a packed room either. So, but because it's you guys, I'm comfortable saying it. So,
Just, you are on camera, just so you know.
okay, that'll be all right. So the flood improvements, there's the Cedar Woodland Brevard 2nd Street North flood assessment, the McNabb outfall bioretention, and that also doubles as a water quality project. And we also have that same project, McNabb, the Ramp Road park improvements, the golf course aquatic vegetation harvesting, and the Cocoa Beach Golf muck dredging and capping project. Those last 2 projects, the vegetation harvesting and the dredging capping project, are not actually reflected in the stormwater master plan update, but they are 2 major load reduction projects that the city is currently working on. So Cedar Woodland Brevard, okay, so you can see that pretty well. These are the model results from 100-year, 24-hour stormfall event. I know anybody who's been down this area during major rainfall, this is a very problematic area. Part of it is the topography, part of it is an ailing, antiquated stormwater system. So we're working on a couple different alternatives that we're evaluating at this one. And of course, the recommended alternative came in to the tune of $8.5 million. So not sure that's,
Oh, you're using Jacobs.
What's that?
Well, you're using Jacobs.
Yeah, yeah.
We use,
So you've worked with him as well?
oh, yeah.
Okay,
I
all
know
right.
DDA.
All right. Another one, which I left off my first list, is this Basin A flood assessment. You can't really tell where this is, but this is actually, well, actually you can. You can see the pier right there. This particular area of Ocean Beach and Ridgewood, it's really problematic. We've got a lot of standing water. The pipe is constantly surcharged, and it floods whenever we get significant rainfall events. So we have not moved forward with this yet. We're going to hire a consultant and start stepping through this project next year. The McNabb outfalls bioretention. This is really what this is. So what you can see right here, if I can get my cursor over here. So this is the Convair Cove project. You have bioretention here, and then you have the permeable pavers here. Here's Dempsey Park. These are really just mirror images of these bioswales. It's the same thing, and this is actually a picture of one of the bioswales at Convair Cove. So that's what you're going to see at the bookends of, it is Capri and Nash are the roads that it's going to be on. So that's to come. We're about 100% design at that point. We're getting ready to go to construction. Go to bid, I should say. Ramp Road park improvements. This is not my favorite because it's adding more impervious surface, but what it will do is redirect the rainfall that currently falls on the impervious surface that is there, and it'll redirect it into the Freedom 7 stormwater pond. The plan is also to add BMATs to the Freedom 7 stormwater pond, also potentially do some pervious pavement. There's a huge question mark there because of experiences we've had with permeable pavers, and I'll get with that in
That was all, the yellow was all pervious concrete at one time.
Yeah, at one time it was, exactly. And the existing, and I did not know this until I started working here, the existing stormwater system that is on site there, that's all exfiltration. They're permeable pipes underneath there. Well, the water table, the groundwater is so high in that area, they just don't function properly.
Look where that pond is. Yeah.
So, and the other thing that we're looking at is something called side bank filters, which I wasn't too terribly familiar with, but it's really the installation of these perforated pipes around the perimeter of the stormwater pond, and they do a really good job of nutrient load reduction. They were definitely a standout when comparing to other baffle boxes, and they're relatively inexpensive. So we're getting ready to step through permitting on this particular project. So stay tuned on this one. I imagine it's going to be a very hot project once we get going with it. A lot of people are interested in that site. Golf course aquatic vegetation harvesting. This is really Kelsey's project. It just happens to be in my budget this year. Kelsey managed to secure us almost $600,000 in soil funding. So at this point, did we ever figure out how many pounds of load reduction? Do you remember off the top of your head?
It's in the plan, the SORL plan, I don't remember.
It's a very large amount. It's because it was $597,000 from soil.
Yeah, it's over 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, over 1,000 pounds of total nitrogen, because current practices at the golf course is just spray. When you spray, all of that nutrients just stays in those ponds, and these ponds are part of a treatment train for a wastewater plant in the event they ever have to discharge, which hasn't happened in quite a few years. But you just basically are loading these ponds with nutrients, and if you ever do have to discharge, you're just going to take those nutrients right out to the lagoon.
So is it part of that muck removal too? Because I'm assuming with all the hyacinths and such in there, there's probably been a layer of muck that's been developed in there over the years.
We've talked about that. At this point, it is not. This project is literally 100% funded by the soil program.
Yeah.
We are trying to usher that into management practices here at the golf course, because yes, it does need to happen.
It's a good place for tilapia, I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
So the vegetation that you're harvesting, it's not beneficial to leave it to uptake the nitrogen and phosphorus?
I'll let you answer that one.
That's a really good question. So it's actually been shown, research suggests that when it's harvested, you're physically removing the nutrients from the water body. It goes to the landfill or it can go other places as well. If you leave it there, eventually it grows large enough and it dies and it releases the nutrients back into the water. So we're going to be removing them. It'll be a constant, maintenance, but we're also looking to add the BMATs, which are floating vegetative islands that are a little bit easier to maintain and still
And
take up nutrients.
You'll find that if the modus operandi for dealing with hyacinths, it's much like it's been to spray it. And as Kelsey says, it dies, it goes to the bottom, it decomposes,
Yeah.
it releases all the nutrients it's taken up.
Yep.
So
And
if
it's-
you get into harvesting,
Yep.
that's the way to go.
And it is an immediate benefit too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is thousands of pounds of nutrients that you are immediately removing from the system. And the other thing is, as is the case with any water body, the edge of the water, vegetation will grow back. And it will
Yeah.
grow back very quickly.
You leave patches when you take out the vegetation, you're gonna clean the pond fully.
Yeah, that's why we're doing the BMATs as well.
Okay.
And if this were a natural shoreline or a natural water body, that would probably be a bit more hesitant to just clean it out because erosion and then obviously habitat for wildlife. But because these are ponds in a golf course, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, these are typically only done in stormwater ponds or like canal ditches, those types of things.
Is this also to give you guys more volume in case you had a reject situation with your effluent?
No,
No, that wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah. Okay.
It's strictly, nutrient removal and to stop the practice of spraying the chemicals.
Okay.
so the next one is the Cocoa Beach Golf Muck Capping Project. This project is the largest capital improvement project in the 10-year Save Our Indian River Lagoon project plan. I think it's $34 million. Wayne Caragino sent a letter to Sorrel and asked them, hey, can we take over managing this project? This was a few years ago. I think it was 2018, 2019. The county obliged, and so the city has taken it over. And with my background in the muck dredging, it was an easy transition to take on this project. So this project is over how many acres?
I'm going to guess about 50.
I want to say it's more than that. I want to say it's 60, maybe 100. I don't know. I honestly don't know off the top of my head, but this is one of the largest contributing muck deposits for loads in all of the Indian River Lagoon. It's far and away the largest contributor in the Banana River portion of the Indian River Lagoon. So we are pretty far along. City staff is currently reviewing some deliverables from the consultant. Once we are done with that review, they'll be ready to submit permit applications. Permitting for this project is going to take a while. This is not something that's ever really been done in the Banana River or in the Indian River Lagoon area at all. I know they've done it down in Lake Worth Lagoon. Is that where?
Sure.
Yeah, but they capped some muck and built some like environmental. It was really restoration of islands for wading birds and whatnot like that, and it's been very successful. But this is new territory for the reviewers here in the Central Florida District.
Well, this is obviously where the golf course came from years ago. And what's the depths out there? In 20 foot? 30,
So-
20, 25 feet?
Yeah, so here, so down here, the dark blue is 30 feet.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so yellow is about 10, green is about 15. When you get to the teal, that is about 20, and then, when you get in the dark blue, it's 25. So this is, the 10 to 15.
Yeah, I know we did some bathymetric in there
Yep.
a long time ago, and it was 20 feet throughout. Pretty
Yeah, so we've actually got really high resolution, like multi-beam bathymetric survey, and that's what this map is, that we collected as part of this project. But yeah, you can see over here, this is probably a 25-foot hole. There's
Yeah.
another 20-plus foot hole here, and there's a variety of holes. And what's interesting, these are actually signatures. I don't know if they used drag lines back then or just big mechanical machines, but this little,
I think they pumped it. I think it was the hydraulic dredge, if I'm not mistaken.
oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that for fact.
So you can see the swing of the dredge head, right? This little arc that you see here,
Yeah.
that's the swing of it, whether it was hydraulic or whether they were going like this and digging, but you can see that arc, and you can see it all the way over here. And the one thing that we realized pretty quickly over at the county was when they were dredging all these areas, because, you know, all of Sykes Creek, all the residential canals, even along Minuteman up here, they weren't digging with the interest of hitting a specific depth. They were digging with an interest to hitting a specific grade
Yeah.
upland. So they were building, you know, they're bringing land up. And so you know, like anything seaward of this line of islands here was not here. So that was the edge of it. They built everything out here.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it was not, I thought maybe at one point this was like a bunch of spoil islands. Everything from the line of the islands that you can see along there, everything west of that.
So
Austin?
Country Club was built on muck?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, I'm not sure it was
Yes.
muck. Was it muck? I mean, it would have been sandy bottom.
Yeah. But I'll send you a 51 aerial,
Yep.
and that shows that Minuteman actually was a causeway that went,
Yeah,
a
it
bridge
went-
that went to Merritt Island.
There's still pilings over there.
Yeah,
You can see them in the
exactly.
water over where there's those fancy houses
But
off South
everything,
Banana.
everything west of, let's say Cedar was
Mm-hmm.
mangrove.
Yep. Yep. It was all mangrove islands.
So the muck now, obviously, there's not really a whole lot of real estate to build up. Will the muck go to inland towards like Platte Ranch or somewhere?
So at this point, we were moving forward with capping,
Yeah.
putting a cap on it, because there was anywhere from 1 to 2 million cubic yards of muck, and you know you need a good bit of real estate to make a substantial dent in that amount of material, and that your daily production has to be really, really high
Yeah.
to get this done. This is a project that if we use that little tiny area they were using behind the
Plus-
reclaim.
Even as it is at 20 feet deep, once you get below about 6, 8 feet, your dissolved oxygen goes.
Yep. Well, that's the other problem is you know when you get below 9 feet of water in the summertime, it's anoxic. It's devoid of life. So
What do you anticipate your project depth will be after you're completed? Plus,
so the cap will probably be on average about 2 feet thick.
Okay.
They're working through the geotechnical slope stability on some of these areas where you've got a steep slope, because that's the big concern is how do you put sediment on
and keep it there.
jello and keep it there underwater, without it moving around. So, but that's one of the problems that we've seen in all these borrow areas, especially when you get over, like, if you ever see the bathymetry over where Sykes Creek, where Quantas Island is, where those residential, when you're standing at the boat ramp looking north and there's those residential canals over to the right there, I guess it's off to the northeast, the bathymetry out there is crazy. And I don't know if it's these dredge operators were just like, it's Friday, I'm not moving, I'm staying right here, but they're digging to 30 feet, or they hit, they dig down until they hit unsuitable material and then they move, so they're.
The Quantas Island Basin is crazy because
Yes.
it's stuff where it's 2 feet deep and stuff where it's
Yep.
20 feet deep.
Yeah, there's one hole there that it almost looks like a meteor hit, and it's almost 30 feet deep in one spot. It's real, and it's not a very big spot. It's pretty wild. So the plan is to cap this, and I think capping is likely, long-term wise, more effective. Hopefully, will be more effective than actually dredging.
But if you're just adding a 2-foot or 3-foot cap on that, you're still going to be 10 feet or better deep.
Oh yes, it's going to be really deep. I don't think there's any area where we come up above -9,
Yeah.
even with the 2 to 3.
So
foot cap.
navigation won't be a problem.
Yeah, navigation will not be an issue.
So capping, would you use are you thinking like a riprap? And then?
No, it'll likely be a sandy sediment.
Okay.
So the sandy sediment, it's very interesting. And Bob, I don't know if you've seen Austin Fox's research paper on monitoring the cap. So there was a project, there's an old tiny borrow pit, there's an old hole up by the FPL power plants. Someone was doing some development, they had to do seagrass mitigation. Basically, DEP said, go ahead and cap that, create seagrass habitat there. So they dumped a cap on it, timing worked out, we heard about it. Austin Fox went out there, did some pre-capping monitoring of the muck there, and then monitored it for about 18 months after they capped it. And what happens is you will see the flux coming up through the cap, like over time. It's, there's snapshots in time. and it will eventually get through the cap, but it's significantly reduced in the load, in the amount of loading, because as these currently stand, the amount of nutrient flux that comes out of them, especially in the summertime, is through the roof. But part of it, it's strongly correlated, and I'm sorry, I'm going down this rabbit hole. It's very strongly correlated with organic content and water content. So what you'll see is, they always talk about the top 10 centimeters of the muck layer. What that is I call it black water, because it's water is what it is, and
Yep.
there's like this fluid layer of organics in it.
Black mayonnaise.
Yes, and it gets even thinner towards the top. But when you squash that, that alone reduces the flux by 30 to 60%. So, okay, sorry, I'm going down the rabbit hole.
I'll go down another rabbit hole real quick here. You were asking about muck on all that fill. Back when we did one of the playgrounds, one of the playground design things at Roseville, many, many years ago, when my kids were about this tall. And we were out there drilling holes for the pylons. We got some poles from FP&L, so we were going down. We got down about 4 feet and just ran into soup, period.
Really?
And that's probably what's under virtually everything out there.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, how does anything compact?
Yeah.
You know, how do you get compaction building on top of muck?
Yeah, I don't know whether this building is on slab on grade. I suspect it is, but
It is slab on grade. I've noticed some structural issues.
How do you not settle? Your
Yeah.
foundation's cracking. It's
Well, I
like,
mean,
Where all
you know
the
that,
chairs we were in here.
you know that big outdoor porch area on the other side of the 19th hole right there? It's
Yeah.
really big, like with super, it's like the ceilings in, where it comes around and meets the building where you can walk in right by the bar.
separate.
There's a separation of that wall. It's got to be like, when you look up high, it's about that far. So going back to that, yeah.
And I'll bet Public Works and all the buildings over there are probably in the same boat, so.
I try not to look up too much in the public. You never know what's going to fall out of the roof.
No.
So I'll jump into the projects completed. I apologize, I've really rambled for quite a while here. So Convair Cove, Minuteman Corridor, LID Streetscape, the Maritime Hammock Pond, and then the Woodland Rain Garden. Convair Cove, this is, performance-wise, this has been a great project in terms of load reduction. It has basically been on point with what they targeted the load reductions to be. What it is you have the pervious pavers, the rain falls on the pervious pavers, they percolate through and into those gabions right there are filled with a bioactivated media. Percolates
Black
through the
gold.
what's
Black
that?
Gold.
Black and gold and gold. We also have one on, I think the north end is wood chips, which actually works really well as well. And when it percolates through, it permeates into the bioretention swales. And then if the water gets high enough, it will pop off into the lagoon.
It's something.
These pervious pavers have been a problem. I'll just leave it at that. A lot of them are broken, but the project has performed very well. I mean, we've seen nitrogen and phosphorus reductions up to 80%, and that's with actual monitoring, not just speculations and calculations. So,
I understand garbage trucks are a problem.
not according to the manufacturer of the pavers, but something else is the problem.
Any case.
Yeah. So Minuteman Corridor. So this is a really cool project for those that are not familiar with it. What you see over here on the right is those are underground stormwater chambers. They're exfiltration chambers, and those run down the middle of Minuteman, basically all the way up from Atlantic Avenue down to, I don't know if they go all the way to past that. Do they go all the way to Brevard, Bob?
I think they go to Orlando and stop.
Okay, that's what I thought, because you start getting into the water table when you get down
Yeah,
close to Brevard.
exactly.
So, in this area, you'll notice when you drive that corridor, even after major rainfalls, we don't have flooding there. And it does a great job of load reduction as well. I didn't see what the load reduction numbers are on this, but I know they're substantial because, and I'll get into why.
Are they filled with media?
No, so basically they set these like, they're almost like dog houses in the ground, and the inlets feed into them, and they're basically, there's 57 stone around them or something like that?
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of 57 stone that fills in around there, and then it percolates out slowly.
Infiltrated pipe.
Maritime Hammock Pond, this is another super cool project that I was not aware of until I came on board with the city. I just thought it was a park. And this is kudos to Joni for these two projects, for Minuteman and this, because they are multi-use projects as well. Minuteman Streetscape made downtown look really pretty. And then Maritime Hammock is a beautiful park, but this is an alum pond that treats a 126-acre watershed. So it diverts water through an alum pond pump system where it pumps alum and it I know you're familiar with what alum is, and it will flock all the particulate and nutrients out, and it settles in the bottom of the pond. So this is something I haven't shared with many people. I should be skywriting this all over the place. We partnered with Florida Atlantic University. We have 2 weather stations and water level stations, one at Ramp Road and one at McNabb. And they collect data every 5 minutes. So we've never had like real-time telemetric data. So it's really nice to have it. Here's just a quick, this is actually the water level since December 12th of 2022 over at McNabb. The light blue line is basically 0, and then it's half-foot increments going down. So this goes all the way through the end of August of this year. So it's good data. You can go on there, look for McNabb, or you can zoom in on the map and click on it. It's got rainfall, it's got barometric pressure, wind direction, it's got all kinds of stuff. So, and this is 100% funded by a NO grant that FAU has. So I apologize, that went way, way longer than I anticipated. My apologies. I appreciate your time.
I've got a couple quick questions for you. I hope they're quick, in any case. I know you said that they're anticipating going up by 1.4 feet. Is that still water? Because, of course, above that, you can have storms and all kinds
So yes, it is still water. The other caveat to that is they're basing this on Daytona Beach Shores ocean sea level rise predictions. Nobody really, I have not seen an analysis of how does the water level in the river compare to the water level in the ocean long term. Here it's a little bit different. We don't have that direct connectivity like they do with Ponce Inlet. We've got Port Canaveral, but it's open, probably only 15% of the time. So, but yes, it is still water level. And with storms, that could change drastically.
Yeah, because that's what it is on the average day. But again, we have a little bit of a storm, a lot of rainfall, things change.
Right, and just to put it in perspective, also what they were saying was the average water level now is 0.7. That is up here.
Yeah.
So now, granted, this year we have had half the rainfall that we normally do. I think we're only at 28 inches this year. We should be upwards of 35 by this point. We typically get most of our rain in July and August and September. So this year has been a relatively dry year, and I think that's why our water tables our river level is so low right now.
And plus your water levels in the fall and winter are a little bit higher too.
Yep.
So that was only started, I think, back in March or April, something like that, when that was
Last summer was really dry too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and of course, if you lost a photovoltaic cell off of that for a while, so
Yes, we did.
any case. And one other thing, while I got you, there was another fish kill back in '79. It was almost as massive as the one that occurred in '16. It was a cold kill because we had weather in the 20s overnight and upper 30s during the day, and a lot of our fish are tropicals, and they don't do real well with cold water. So there were snook floating everywhere, which some folks harvested.
Right.
Any case, that's it. That's good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Was that last picture, was that mullet or grass?
So these are actually black drum. This is not here.
That's black drum?
Yeah, these are huge black drum. This is way up north end of Banana River. We were given the opportunity to go up. Really, this is right around where the launch pads are, and some of the folks over at NASA took us for a boat ride up there. That's like
I'll get you another picture of the scenario that was taken by some of the folks at NASA that has a school of redfish.
Yep.
Imitates looking like a shark.
Right. Yeah,
I
and
don't know if
that's
you've seen that or not, but in any case.
yeah. These are probably 40-pound. That's a school of 40-pound black drum. I mean, they're massive fish. It was really, really neat. It was a neat experience to go up there and see that.
Yep, they're up there.
Kind of like untouched old Florida.
That's why that was cordoned off in the late '80s because it's a fisheries reserve area.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Cool.
right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thanks, everyone.
Great
Again, my
presentation.
apologies for going so long.
Thank you very much, Walker. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
That was great.
All All right, no one else has any questions for Walker while we have him there?
We'll turn you loose.
You can go home now.
All right, y'all have a good evening. Thank you.
too, thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right, so then we'll move on to the next item in our agenda, which is staff reports. Kelsey?
Just a few things for you guys tonight, mostly about upcoming events. South Thousand Islands cleanup is this Saturday from 8 to noon at Ramp Road Park.
I'll be there.
Walker will be there, I'll be there, Bob will be there.
Yep.
Bob, do you have anything you want to add because you're heading up this event?
I think we're good. I also coordinated with MRC, which apparently is, I won't say in competition, but they're working with it. They're working on their own. So notice went out through MRC and also through KBB. So we will see who shows up.
Great. I sent it to the high school as well, so
Good,
we'll
thank
probably
you.
have
Yeah,
some
and I saw
students.
that was on Facebook today. So thank you.
Okay. I will be going to Cocoa Beach High School to do the Lagoonology game with 5 classes later this month. So trying to reach those students. We're also going to be having a Day in the Life event at Cocoa Beach High School on October 5th. So I know that some people from the committee have volunteered before to help run the stations for the students. So if anybody's interested, let me know. That'd be great to have you guys there. We're also going to be having an event at the community garden. We try to do a little garden talk every year about some type of vegetable gardening topic. Last year we covered composting, so this year it might be something more related to garden pests or more organic vegetable gardening. We're lining up that speaker right now, but that'll be on either October 7th or the 14th. So we'll announce that also for interested residents that want to come out and learn about growing their own vegetables at home. And then I also wanted to share with you guys some educational signage that we've been working on. So I'll just plug it in, make it a little bigger. It's a little small. So this first one is for the Low Impact Development Project at Conver Cove. Walker discussed this project with the Pervious Pavers. So this is for the public. It'll be an educational kiosk over there by the swale. So it talks about all the different components of the stormwater treatment train out there, how they all work, starting with the environmental curbs to the pervious pavers to the gravel that's under the roadway, creating storage capacity, other storage capacities with the rain tanks and those bioactivated medias that Walker was discussing. And then it'll go over and talk about the bioswale and then the native plants that are in there as well. And then just a little bit of specific information about the project and the nutrient reduction that it provides. So that's one of our signs. We're also going to be having kiosks for the Oyster Project out there as well. So most of these kiosks are usually grant requirements, but I think they're also really great to let people know what's going on, because you don't know what's going on below your feet if it's under the road, right? So for the Oyster Project, highlighting different reasons oyster reefs are beneficial, also just talking about oysters' life cycles in general and how we're trying to bring them back to this area, and talking about some specific things we had to do to bring oysters to the lagoon for our project.
Awesome. Are these signs, when you say kiosk, are they? They're big plywood
huge.
painted and they're like clear coated on pedestals. They're permanent.
Yes.
Perfect. I like it. I love it.
And then we have one for plants as well. This one is a little less project specific because there's only so much you can say about a mangrove inside of a box. But as you guys know, we did the mangrove planter boxes out there, so we have a bit of a description about the project there, and then we highlighted just the different species of mangroves that are growing throughout the lagoon area. The different seeds you might find as you're kind of going through the lagoon as well. So we're really excited to bring these to the park and hope that the public will look at them and learn a little bit about the ways that we're helping the lagoon here and ways they can help. And then we also have partner panels that'll go underneath the project signs as well, just to highlight the different projects or the partners we have. So this one, for example, will go under the oysters and the plant project. We had several partners. And then this sign will go under the one for the Low Impact Development Roadway project. So we'll probably have those installed by the end of the month. But I just wanted to give you guys a little sneak peek.
Cool.
By the end of when?
The end of the month.
Oh, cool.
Yes, very soon.
Excellent.
So, this is great, and this isn't a negative comment, but the park is so remote. How is the public gonna get directed there? I guess I'm thinking, we're talking about having stuff, once the city hall is built, some informational stuff there. Maybe there could be a thing that you need to come visit McNabb Park, because we have this neat stuff here.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
that's
it
a good
really
idea.
is pretty remote. It's off the beaten path.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no parking either.
It's a neighborhood park, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no, well, I don't expect a crowd to come, but
Yeah,
some interested
yeah.
people
Yeah.
might want to go, oh, that looks really cool.
I understand it's real popular for weddings and that sort of stuff, so, because it does have a kind of a scenic site, so, any case.
Yeah, we can also put some stuff on our website. There's some on the website about this project, but I'm hoping we can put these signs on there just to give people a little sneak peek of what's out there.
Great.
But like I said, it is a grant requirement, so a lot of people are like, what's that in the water? And now they can read about it.
Yeah. How are our oysters and such like doing there? Are they doing well? I know the last time you said they were doing pretty well.
Yeah, I think they're still doing pretty well. I got another report maybe last week. I haven't teased through it. At the next meeting, I can give you guys an update.
Okay.
How do you learn that? Do you harvest a few and open them to check their activity?
So the University of Central Florida is our ecological monitoring partner for the project. So they have like a certain number every time they go out. They have a statistically significant number of oyster gabions and sizes of and areas of oysters that they actually pull out of the water. They check them, they measure them, they see are they alive, are they dead. They take that data back and see if the oysters are growing. They're probably not shrinking, or if there's new oysters that are seen on the site. So we're having third-party people monitor it, just to remove bias from the project, and they're so experienced, and they monitor almost every project throughout the lagoon.
I love it.
Yeah. All right. Just a little sneak peek, but that is all the updates I have for you guys.
Good.
Thank you. All right, then we'll move on to the next item, which is old business. And we will continue working on our sustainability plan update. We have the community outreach survey that we had discussed, and we all contributed to the categories for the questions that we wanted to all see.
Did mine a little different. Oops.
All right, so we all agreed that the questions from the satellite survey, we thought that those were relevant and good, and we wanted to model our survey after that, but we were going to change the categories to be relevant to our city. So for the first question, what sustainability topic do you want more clarity or education on? I'm just going to see if I can parse out.
Who said one?
Yes.
Recycling appears twice, obviously.
So recycling looks popular.
This is almost like something you have to take offline to,
Yeah, there's, yeah.
Sort.
Yes, I think they do need to be sorted, and we can
Yeah.
see what
yeah.
came up more than once. So then do we want to say, how do we want to choose these topics? Do we want it to be, if something comes up 2 or more times, that it should be included, or do we want to just sort it and bring it to the next meeting and say, okay, these are the final categories, or what do we suggest here?
Do we have time to go through them real quick, or is this something that, I guess we do need to get better numbers.
Yeah.
I think sort and then discuss next time, and then
Yeah.
if somebody has one and I'm the only one who has that one, I can
Right.
argue
Why don't-
why I think that's
Right.
more
Yeah.
important than you people didn't pick it.
Why don't we take these home, look at them, because there's some things that jog my thoughts, and I'm sure they're same things that others, because we need to get down to, again, this one has what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 topics across the top. If we get further than, get more than that, it's going to get exceptionally busy. So
Yeah.
we need to boil these down to something that's broad enough that covers specific topics, but
And I'm
Yeah,
noticing
it has some
that
specificity to it,
even
too.
some of the ones that are different from each other still have a sign of kind of a kernel of similarity.
Similarity,
Yes,
yeah.
that I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we could probably mesh together some ideas.
Yeah, let's, I think we need to do homework.
Okay, so
And
then,
get it back to Kelsey sometime in the next couple of weeks.
so then
Otherwise, we'll be
right.
here all night.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I agree. Okay, so then I'm thinking that, calendar.
I'll put composting, it's already on there.
That we're not going to be able to determine the survey questions today. We need, I'm just looking at my calendar here. But we would like to have them prepared and ready for the next meeting to say yay or nay and have something to move forward with and implement.
And are we looking for just one topic for each question, or are we?
So we have the 5 questions that we said we would use. So what
Right.
sustainability topic do you want more clarity? Which community initiative? Which sustainability element? Which sustainability-related capital investment? How do you typically get your city sustainability news? So we said
Great
that those
choices.
5 questions we were going to keep,
Right.
but the 5 categories they
Ones
have
across the
listed
top, yeah.
across the top are not necessarily relevant or important to our community, so we wanted to.
So that's what we want to agree on, is what
Yes,
those 5 are
what
going to be.
those 5 should be.
The 5 horizontal ones
Yes,
was where
and-
we're,
And
where
do
we
we
need to work.
Do we need 5, or like, if you look at this particular, they have top, first, second, and third choice. Do we only need 3, or do we need 5?
I would like 5.
Okay,
I just,
Yeah,
I think it'd be better to give more options and see if something comes out on top than
okay.
to limit it.
yep,
That's my feeling.
yep, I think you're right.
And I think from what I've seen, we have a lot of good options from what we have contributed. So I'm not really worried about,
Come on, 5. Right.
yeah, coming up with the 5 and having them be valid and meaningful. So I would be happy to go through and sort of make a master list that says, question 1, here are the, because a lot of them are similar, so these are the ones
Or you
that.
boil them down
Yes,
to-
boil them down and then send them to Kelsey. Maybe she can send them to the group,
Yes,
and then we
that
can
sounds good. Great.
sort of have some idea of which ones we want to choose before we arrive
Yep,
for the
sounds
next
good.
meeting.
Do we want to respond on that before we arrive, too?
Ideally, I think that, so we can move
Be more efficient.
forward as much as possible before bringing it to the meeting, so that the meeting, it can kind of just be, maybe there's a few we want to discuss, yay or
Yeah.
nay, but overall, it would be complete.
But again, work through Kelsey because.
Yes,
yeah,
yes. So I'm
we
saying,
have
so
our-
I could put it all together by next week sometime, maybe midweek. And if Kelsey is up for it, to send it out to the group, and then we would have a response to her that we could then discuss at the meeting.
Adria, if you're putting that together, if you look at my number 3, the first one is backyard composting.
Yes.
Well, I made the last one composting as well.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. So we
I-
have 4 options. That's fine. That'll give us more we can fill in.
I like someone wrote oyster gardening. I'll change mine to oyster gardening.
Okay, I'll put that on there.
I like that.
Okay.
All right, so I'll compile these and send them to Kelsey within the next week, and then we can move from there.
And
Okay.
then somebody's going to set a date for us to respond, then, right?
Yes.
We'll agree on.
You want to respond the week before our next meeting?
Would September 25th work for everyone to have your response back to Kelsey?
We'll do our best. This is a
Does that work for you, Kelsey?
busy month for me,
Let me-
but that's okay.
Every month.
All right. All right, so then we have a plan to move forward, and then by next meeting, we should have the final thing ironed out to be ready to be distributed. All right, so those will be our next steps on that. Then we can move forward to the next item, which is cigarette litter prevention. So we have a really great draft that Jim put together, which sets up a really nice framework for what we have discussed. Thank you very much.
It's a framework, but we already have some input on changes. I want to tell you, I did go to Indian Harbor Beach today and said, I wonder what this looks like. And they have some parks in A1A. I went to one small park, and they have great signage, but I couldn't find where the designated smoking area was. And they supposedly had, so I went down on the beach. As I walked down on the beach, this is very clearly, the signs are very clear. They say, no smoking on the beach nor on the boardwalk. Right? So as I'm walking on the boardwalk, there's a guy hanging out on the boardwalk smoking a cigarette.
Of course, yeah.
It's not for me to say, I don't even live there. So, but anyway, went there, I could not find the smoking area. So I came back into the parking lot, and right in front of the boardwalk, there's a designated smoking area with a sign that says,
And a butt can and a few other things.
So, it's a very nice little park, very clean, very.
Well, the good news is, I don't think, compared to the 70s and 80s, I don't think per capita there are as many smokers. I think I think there's a lot fewer smokers per capita today.
There sure are a lot of cigarette butts. They must be
I know.
There used to be a commercial, you're smoking more and enjoying it less. So. So anyway, Bob, you had some comments on.
Yeah, one thing, I think you'd have to look at the number of, okay, spit it out here. Look at the number of butts that are collected. I think there's the number one thing that's been collected in coastal cleanups over the years, and that might be worthy of mentioning. And number two, that the filters are made of a product called cellulose acetate. And you think of cellulose as a wood product, and this is not. This is a plastic. So again, it's contributing, the filter itself is a plastic that as the cigarette butt decomposes, I assume that contributes to our microplastics in the environment. So that might, those are 2 points that you might roll into there.
Now,
And I did provide
article.
you with a copy of that article that the gentleman was in this afternoon's Orlando Sentinel, so
Yeah,
it was very timely.
I don't know if you see, Kelsey put out an email to us just right before this meeting with the article
Right.
that Bob talked about how many states have banned smoking on the beach.
Right.
Entire
This is-
states. And it gets into some detail about how bad the plastic is too.
Right.
So I think those things need to be added in here also.
Right.
To make it somewhat stronger.
Yeah, this gentleman is vice chair of the Tobacco-Free Partnership of Broward County, chair of the Tobacco-Free Environment Subcommittee of the Tobacco-Free Work Group of the Consortium for a Healthier Miami-Dade, and an active member of Tobacco-Free Volusia. So he's obviously got a point, but any case. But the interesting article has a few points in it that, Jim may incorporate if that's.
I noticed something. Does the city have a street sweeper?
Yes.
So,
Or they have a contract sweeper.
Yeah, it's not owned.
okay, I was up near 520 on US 1, excuse me, A1A, and looking at the median
Yeah.
and stuff like that,
It's
and
just
there
full
were
of butts.
thousands on the
Yeah.
gutter, and I'm thinking, well, that's we need to be sweeping the streets. That's what there were literally hundreds and hundreds of cigarette butts. How often do we sweep the streets? Do we know?
Your street sweeper guy just left. Walker oversees street sweeper, but I think it's at least once a week. They send us little maps and show us where they go. But 520 is DOT, so it could be that that's not within our jurisdiction.
I think 520 and A-Way don't get sweeped. I know that the residential streets, the city streets do get sweeped under this contract.
Do we count the tonnage of?
Yes, that's part of our NPDS permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll redo the draft or enhance the draft with some stuff.
Well, I have a ton of comments. When they're based mostly, so I watched the commission meeting
I did
where
also.
Yeah,
I
they
did also.
rejected the other regulation. And so I had some things that I thought that and again, I am not, I've never written an ordinance, I haven't read tons of ordinances, so I don't know how specific we should get or how much information should be included, but some of the things that I thought that we could directly address to their concerns from the last regulation was, for one, maybe we should consider talking about this as a cigarette restriction, because the scope of the law that we are allowed to sort of
Yeah.
legislate
Cigars
around
are exempt.
is cigarettes. And so, there was talk about, vaping not being included and cigars are not included. And so I thought that, and what we're addressing with the litter problem is a direct cigarette problem. So I want to put it out to you
Yeah.
all to see, does it make more sense to specifically address it as a cigarette restriction
Well,
than a smoking?
Jamie, who's not here tonight, his comment was he thinks vaping should be allowed, okay?
Right.
And in Indian Harbor Beach, there's nothing, the sign does not, there's no comment on vaping, it's no
Right.
smoking.
Right.
I remember at the commission meeting, one of the commissioners said, well, it doesn't talk about marijuana. I thought, well, marijuana's legal anyway. So, well, what's the point of
Right.
bringing that up? But it was brought up. So, smoking cigarettes, yeah, but saying no smoking, that gets, I don't know how many people are going to know, if they're cigar smokers, are they going to know that for some reason, there's this loophole or this explicit carve out for cigar smokers, which I have no idea why, except maybe they were thinking that they do not have filters on them, so therefore.
It's not a litter issue.
So the definition in the draft here, I think it came from the one presented previously.
Yes, it did.
Smoking means inhaling, exhaling, burning, carrying, or possessing any lighted tobacco product, including cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco, and any other lighted tobacco product. In accordance with Section 30 Florida State Statute, smoking does not include the use of unfiltered cigars.
My only issue with that, which I mean, in a perfect world, yes, I would love all of that. My only issue is that if we're going with the two-pronged approach of litter and health, that a pipe doesn't necessarily create this litter that we
Yeah.
are
And I
trying to
cannot
combat.
tell you if I've ever seen a person on the beach smoking a pipe.
Pipe. I
Yeah.
can't think of the last time I saw somebody smoking a pipe.
70s.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because I want to directly address the question
least
of,
a
are we
tobacco pipe.
trying
Put it
to
that way.
create a fix for where there's not a problem, right? So I'm just trying to make it as narrow in scope
Right,
as possible,
yep.
so we're not just putting out
Yep.
overarching regulations and infringing people's rights supposedly.
I think
And
you have
so-
a pretty steep hill to deal with it
Yes,
anyway.
yes.
but,
So
in any case,
to
yeah.
me, because the Florida statute is so narrow, and so what we can do within our powers as city is so narrow that we should be as specific as possible in the ordinance so that it seems amenable to the people who
Okay.
will
I
make
can agree with that,
the
yeah.
choice.
So this is the thing, guys. So I like to play golf, but I'm not very good, but I like to play. But I can't stand any type of smoke smell, whether it's cigarettes, cigars. I just, but a lot of people smoke cigars on the golf course. A lot of people smoke cigarettes on the golf course.
But this is the beach.
I know that, but it's still city property, and so I think the ordinance needs to distinguish, if this is a city ordinance, you're gonna have someone come in and say, well, you allow us to smoke here and litter, but you don't allow us to smoke there. I think that you could have,
So you-
personally, I don't want them smoking anywhere, but it's gonna happen.
So you think it should be expanded to be not just the Ocean Beach, but city property or city parks
You're
or?
never going to win the golf course on that, though.
Yeah.
You're not, though. That's what I'm saying.
I would-
So how do you win the beach if you can't win the golf course?
Well, when I watched the commission meeting, there were some commissioners who were wondering why was the beach excluded. They kept asking, why did you exclude the beach? And there was no clear answer as to why that proposal excluded the beach. And one of the commissioners actually said, I'm a surfer and the beach smells like cigarettes, so it'd be great to get rid of it.
If we're going for what we can do,
Yeah.
I think it is more likely that we can make a strong case that is appealing to,
Litter on the beach.
yes.
Well, the other thing that's in that article that Bob had
Tourism.
sent out is that it's appealing to tourism.
Yes.
Say, hey, Cocoa Beach has smoke-free. or-
That's a great point too, to
We know Daytona's not.
enhance our,
There are others that do
Image.
though.
But I think they banned smoking on Daytona. They banned smoking and alcohol for that matter.
Okay.
There were some others. The article I had was Pompano Beach, Delray Beach, Boca Raton, and Fort Lauderdale. And that was an Orlando Sentinel article from August.
Yeah.
Huh?
so
Okay, we should
another,
narrow the scope.
another comment, another thought that I had about this was, there was also a comment about the rights of the smoker and how smokers have a right to smoke outside. I don't know that I agree with that. However, I think an important counterpoint is that there are rights of the non-smoker. And that is to, the rights of the non-smoker are health, well-being, however we want to frame that, but I think that that's an important point, that the rights of the smoker do not supersede the rights of the non-smoker, especially in our public beaches. And so I just think it's important to point out that
That's good.
these are the rights that we are intent on
That's a very
protecting.
good point.
And need to point out that we're talking about designated areas which have not been decided, but there
Yes.
will be areas
will be
where they
designated
can.
areas.
Yes,
Can.
yes. So their, rights of the smoker will be protected in that scope.
That's perfect. I like it.
They'll probably only be in the parks rather than the numbered streets down south, but whatever.
And then another issue that I saw brought up that I thought that we should address as well is that if we're calling this a litter problem, we already have a litter ordinance. And so I think that we need to address that directly, that cigarette litter is a unique litter problem, that I would say it doesn't fall under the normal umbrella of litter because of its scale. It's litter on a whole other scale when we're talking about something that's in the trillions in the oceans. If there were candy wrappers in the trillions on the scale that cigarettes were, we would address candy wrappers directly. But not only that, cigarette butts are toxic and harmful and contain microplastics and harm the environment and human beings in a multitude of other ways. So I think that as far as talking about it as a unique problem, it's not just a litter problem, it's a unique litter problem because of the scale and the harm that the butts do.
I like that.
So I thought it would be important to address that as well.
Okay, I'll incorporate those.
Yeah, and then again, and you had mentioned it, about the designated areas. Is that something that we need to establish, or is that something we put out there in the city, if enacted,
Well,
will
this is
figure all that
a
out?
step. This is a step to say that we would support designated areas, but
Okay.
to define what those are is probably another step beyond.
Okay.
Yeah,
beyond this.
this is what it looks like in Millennial Park in Indian Harbor Beach.
Okay.
It's, this is the parking lot I'm standing in.
Right.
So this is where you come to smoke, and this is the boardwalk that's leading into the beach.
Crossover, yeah.
I would love to put a trail cam there and see how many people use that smoking area. Or actually,
I know.
or open up those cigarette holders once a week.
And see how many butts are in there.
I bet
5.
people don't even know it's there.
Well, the signs are very, very clear.
Oh, wow.
They
I like
they
that.
have
That is very clear
signs.
Yeah. Yes, that is
And
actually.
it would be another side we'd be adding to all our crossovers.
Something like that, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Good.
nice, yeah. That stands out nice.
It's a nice little park, very small park.
And then the question that I had was, and I imagine that this would be resolved by the city, if we were to draft an ordinance and send it through, it would have to go through
Legal.
like
Yeah.
legal,
Oh, yeah.
and they would kind of clean up the language, because I don't know if we say the beach park or Ocean Beach. I know the city has certain.
I mixed uses in here. Sometimes I call it municipal beaches, and sometimes I call it city beaches. I don't know what's the right
Neither do I.
way to do that.
Kelsey,
So
you
I-
may,
yeah.
Kelsey, you may know, it seems to me that at one point, we were talking about beaches for another reason, that the city has designated the entire Ocean Beach as a park. It seems to me that that's correct. I can't,
In the city commission meeting in January, the city attorney said that.
okay. So the entire stretch of beach in Coco Beach is a quote
Because
city
it got,
park.
that's where the confusion got into, why is the beach excluded? Because, wait,
It
the
is a
beach is a
park.
park.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna say, well, parks, you would have to include the beach.
That was all my comments.
I will incorporate all these comments and send out a new draft, so.
Great.
And appreciate the article, Bob.
Yeah, that came, as I said, that popped up this afternoon, and I went, ooh, we're talking about this tonight.
And I think one other thing is we need to be, I know that there's, it addresses the ramifications of breaking this ordinance, but I think it needs to be really clear on what the penalty is. You know, what's the violation? If you're caught actually throwing a cigarette butt down, what is the fine? If you're just smoking, is there a separate penalty?
I don't know if that falls into that's the question.
I mean, it
Good
has to
question.
be enforced. If
But-
there's an ordinance, there has to be a way to enforce
Right,
the
right.
ordinance.
Well, it's probably a level something or other
No, I know it's a
violation.
misdemeanor,
Yeah,
but.
marshal is provided in
It's just
FS.
a $25 fine or
Civil,
something
yeah,
like
some
that.
sort of
yeah.
civil penalty.
Yeah, but you know, you're never gonna, the guy, like I said, went there, took pictures of the sign and walked out to the beach and there's this guy smoking right on the crossover. So I'm thinking, people are still gonna do it.
So does he
But
get a
I think there's
ticket?
some number of people that they see the sign and they're gonna abide by it. 'Cause,
Yeah, of
well,
course.
They must mean it. There's a big sign here. It says no smoking.
Right, well, it's like
It'd be
dogs
like
on the
taking your
beach.
dog onto the beach in an area that dogs aren't
Allowed,
permitted.
yeah.
People, I think, most people adhere to the rule.
Most people don't.
But there's always that 1%.
Of course. Of course.
Okay.
All right. Any other suggestions or comments or questions? All right, then our next steps are Jim will continue to
Yeah.
work on the draft and we will address it again at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, the next item is new business, of which there is none here. And so we will move on to committee member announcements. Any of our members have anything?
I'll just repeat what Kelsey said, that we're having the coastal cleanup on this Saturday. I'm working at Ramp Road. We'll be there at 8 o'clock until roughly noon. City Boat will be there. Finn Expeditions is providing kayaks. So, and plus there are several other locations. I know Lori Wilson and 4th Street South have got people.
Somebody put out signs up at the front of Lori
Yeah,
Wilson.
Lori Wilson, yeah. There's a group that's doing it, Lori Wilson. And again, 4th Street South is another one. I know they're doing Sherry Down at Cape Canaveral, so if you want to go to the beach, fine. There's a couple opportunities there.
Any other member have an announcement to make?
No, I just wanted to make a comment on the, I took some notes when I watched the Fish Commission meeting about the smoking, and John from Surfrider said, this is the right thing to do, which I thought was, summed it up.
Yep.
I agree.
I'm curious, this is just kind of a thought, is it, as we know, the Surfrider folks were interested in doing this and appeared at the meeting. I'm wondering if it'd be wise to circulate a draft to them to see if they had any comments. I don't know if there's a policy for that or not.
I
but-
was just going to say, are we allowed to do that? Is that?
They'll see it ultimately.
Well,
They would see it ultimately
another
anyway.
thing we could do is we could specifically invite a representative or two to come to
Yeah.
our next sustainability committee meeting and say, please come because we're going to discuss this.
Whenever an ordinance is being presented, there's always time for public comment.
But yeah, as
But
long as they
they're-
know it's on the agenda, yeah.
But again, they're not often, unless they're in the audience in a meeting, involved in the development process, unless they're specifically invited to participate.
I agree.
Usually.
Yep.
Because I know, there are some topics that they do invite, particularly people
Specialists.
that have
Yeah,
interest in
yeah,
it.
yeah, of course.
So I would say, for example, when we were / still are working on the sea turtle lighting ordinance update, the Sea Turtle Conservancy has
Right.
provided a great deal of advisement. So if there's anybody on the committee that would like to send it to any of their contacts that I think would be a good input,
Okay.
I think that's fine, as long as it's not a discussion amongst everybody
Right.
outside of the room.
Right, okay.
So So who has the
Who has
contact?
contact?
When Jim, I can do that.
Okay.
But, you know, once you have that put together, got it to Kelsey distributes it. If I can get it a few days before the meeting, I know I can get in touch
I
with John
should
and
be
a
able
few
to
of the
get this
others who
out.
have brought it
Soon.
Okay.
All right, then. We will tentatively meet October 4th at 6:30, and we are adjourned.
Good enough.